The U.S., where campaign is still ongoing ahead of the country's presidential election. The United States Vice President Kamala Harris appeared in a talk show-style event hosted by television legend Oprah Winfrey. Similarly, former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail as he spent Thursday evening at an event in Washington, D.C. There is more in this report.
But can I just start with this?
Yes, please.
I have to say this because in all of my private conversations, Gail, and I've said this 100 times, and everybody is saying it, you all have said it.
As the United States prepares for her presidential election, candidates of major political parties have increased their campaigns in order to convince more voters. Vice President Kamala Harris joined forces with Oprah Winfrey on Thursday night in a star-studded campaign event in the battleground state of Michigan. Kamala Harris sat with the media mogul along with a studio audience and others joining online. The Vice President talked about democracy and what is at stake in the 2024 election.
You know, there's so much at stake in this election. And ultimately, the question before us is what kind of country do we want to live in? And the beauty of a democracy, as long as we can hold on to it, the beauty of a democracy is each of us has the power. Each of us has the power to answer that question. Traveling this country and knowing what is at stake in terms of fundamental freedoms, what's at stake in terms of fighting against hate and those efforts to divide us. And I do know that I am in a position to do something about it. So I felt a great responsibility.
One of those who joined the event online to voice her support for the Vice President was actress Julia Roberts.
You know, I feel like it's interesting. We talk so much about being Americans united for something, but this has become such a global representation of our country and what we stand for. And I get to travel internationally a lot, and I want people to say, oh, you're American? And not, oh, how's it going over there? You know?
Yes.
So I want to get back to that space.
Exactly. Thank you.
Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump also spoke at an event on Thursday. The event was meant to speak against anti-Semitism in the United States. Mr. Trump repeated his previous claims that the Hamas attacks on October 7th last year would not have happened were he in charge.
We've gathered today to talk about the scourge of anti-Semitism tonight. We're 2 weeks away from the one-year anniversary of the worst attack on the Jewish people. It was a wake-up call for the entire world, and you have to take it that it is a wake-up call. Get smart. Instead, even here in America, Jewish citizens have been forced to endure the worst outbreak of anti-Semitism in many generations. And so many people shockingly even deny the attack took place. This is a new thing. I saw it recently where they're interviewing people. They said, well, we don't know if there was an attack. I don't know. It's just so terrible.
The Republican presidential candidate, while delivering his keynote address at the Israeli-American Council's National Summit in Washington, D.C., invited up October 7 victims affected by the Israel-Hamas war.
He's a good-looking guy. I just said, do you want to say something? And he wasn't exactly sure. Say something, Andre.
I'm a little bit shy. I'm close to Trump, like I'm shy.
Americans will head to the polls in November to elect the next U.S. president. The vote will be closely watched around the world. They will also be voting for members of Congress who play a key part in passing laws that can have a profound effect on American life.
Well, let's come back to Africa, where Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have signaled willingness to engage in peace talks, responding to U.S. President Joe Biden's call for dialogue in the ongoing war, which has lasted over 7 months. Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan expressed readiness for constructive efforts to end the conflict, while RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo reaffirmed his commitment to ceasefire negotiations. stating the path to peace lies in dialogue, not violence, end quote. Despite these statements, both leaders continued to blame each other for the violence, which began in April 2023 due to tensions between the army and RSF. However, none of the sides have outlined specific steps toward peace. Still on Sudan, the United Nations mission in South Sudan has expressed deep regret as the UN backs the extension of South Sudan's transitional period until February 2027. Speaking at an extraordinary meeting in Juba, head of the United Nations mission, Nicholas Haysom, said while the UN will endorse the extension of the transitional period, the organization does so with real regret and disappointment. The meeting, attended by government officials, diplomats, regional stakeholders, civil society representatives, and the UN, focused on the decision to prolong the transition in South Sudan, initially set to end in 2024. Mr. Haysom, who highlighted that the same issue arose 2 years ago, added that it is evident the country is not ready for elections that can produce a credible and peaceful outcome. South Sudan continues to face numerous challenges, including a stagnant peace process, severe economic hardship, and a widespread flooding, all of which have hindered progress. And talking health, scientists in South Africa say they have identified an outbreak of rabies in seals that's believed to be the first time the virus has spread in sea mammals. State veterinarian Dr. Leslie Van Helden revealed that at least 24 Cape fur seals that were found dead or euthanized in various locations on South Africa's west and south coast had rabies. Rabies, which affects mammals and can be passed to people, is almost always fatal once symptoms appear. The state veterinarian added that though the virus has long been seen in wild animals such as raccoons, coyotes, it had never been recorded spreading among marine mammals. And in Nigeria, key findings from a project done from data analysis on stillbirth has been officially launched to help improve evidence-based decisions towards the reduction of preventable stillbirths. Experts at the event believe the SPEED project will boost advocacy to reduce stillbirth in Nigeria. Kemi Balogun has details.
Stillbirths come with a traumatic and long-lasting impact on women and their families, who often endure profound psychological suffering and sometimes stigma in their communities. In Nigeria, more than 400,000 stillbirths occurred between 2014 and 2023. To reduce this burden, experts here are seeking an improvement in Nigeria's capacity to use data of registered stillbirths for decision-making through the unveiling of a stillbirth dashboard.
Up till now, Nigeria has the second highest rate globally, after India. So it's not going to be magic, and it's not going to be cheap talk. It's going to be about action.
And it also involves the communities, because the community is where the whole thing should start from. You need to help and strengthen the community health committees, the primary health care committees that you have.
This shows that effort to maintain a stable and reduced rate of stillbirths need to be sustained and need to be consistent.
The one-year SPEED project is a vital strategy to translate stillbirths data for policy impact through 3 key outputs. It will combine a multi-sectorial approach which will drive data use and bridge policy gap by making data on stillbirths more visible and accessible for evidence-based decision.
Our source of data is from the Federal Ministry of Health, DHIS2, as database. Now, the database has some limitations, and we have started it here. The data that is coming in there is majorly from the primary healthcare centers we have in Nigeria.
What are the things we can apply based on evidence to take one step in the right direction to reduce preventable stillbirths in Nigeria?
The stillbirth dashboard has now been launched on the website of the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. Kemi Balogun, TVC News, Abuja.
Focus is on Italy, where severe weather in the March region has led to 300 emergency interventions, with 260 firefighters actively responding to the situation. The most critical areas include Ascoli Piceno, where people were rescued due to flooding on the SP36 in the Ponteroto area and between Cupra and the Grottamare. In Ancona, 6 families were evacuated due to a landslide threatening homes. Firefighters are still working across the region to manage the ongoing emergency.